What's up, you fucking rockets? Welcome back to Cinematic Calamity. We have an amazing episode for you today. This is the first episode where we have a guest. I finally have figured out how to put this show together and bring somebody in. A big part of the issue is, of course, the big global bastard we're dealing with right now, where people are not supposed to be in our houses. And also this past week, I had COVID. I'm literally at the end of my isolation right now. The interview you're about to see, I recorded at the end of last year. I think we recorded it November of last year. And so we talk about a little bit of dated stuff, but for the most part, it's very relevant to what we both do. Marlena is a costume designer. She is also a union member in IATSE 873 with me. She is also a hilarious comedian. We go into the ins and outs of her job in the costumes department. We talk about the first gig she did in film. We talk about the story that she told on my comedy show that I run, Cinematic Calamity, which we will get back to. And we talk about her time in comedy, as well as the pets she has had or has, her pet Parrot, her lovebird Pip, and of course Morty, the golden retriever. We talk about all those beautiful animals throughout the show. We basically found out what a day-to-day for Marlena is, how many people are involved with that job, how many people it takes to keep your actors, your background, all your people on set dressed and comfortable while they're in very awkward situations and very strange costumes. We get much more into that in the episode. I'm running my shows again, both of them. I'm running Cinematic Calamity, which is the show that this is based on originally, where we have different comedians who also work in film and television telling their most horrific, hilarious, ridiculous, and sometimes crazy stories on set. It's all about their time on set. We have a really good show for you. That's May 16th at 9:30 p.m. in the Mainspace of Comedy Bar. But coming up before that, on May 3rd, which is one day before my 10-year anniversary, so this is kind of my de facto anniversary show, we have the McNarly Comedy Show. That's my comedy show this is only my second time running it. The other one I did was on my birthday. I did it on my birthday, now the anniversary. This is kind of a special occasion show for me when you think about it. But we're doing that May 3rd in the Mainspace of Comedy Bar at 8 p.m. It's going to be an amazing show. We have a few comics booked already. Tickets are available at comedybar.ca. You go to comedybar.ca, you go into the shows section, you go to the Bluer venue, and you look up the McNarly Comedy Show, which is on May 3rd, or May 16th, Cinematic Calamity 3D. I'm calling this one 3D. We'll get into that at some point, too. But those two shows are going. They're both going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to having as many of you guys out for that. And honestly, I'm just glad to be putting content back out there. I think this interview with Marlena, you guys are going to love. I have two shows have come out today. I put out this one with Marlena, and I put out one of just me talking, kind of just a way of saying, hey, I owe you an episode, because it's been almost a month and a half since I've given you guys one. But we're working hard today. We've been really trying to kill it while I've been in. I'm saying we. It's just been me here. I've been alone in this basement apartment since Tuesday of last week. It is now Wednesday, and I am slowly going crazy, but we're getting to the point where I can get out and go back to work and everything like that. I believe I'm back to work on Friday. And my symptoms weren't too bad. I never had terribly bad symptoms. They were mild. They were a bit annoying, but they never got too out of control. I'm just ready to go back to work. But in the meantime, man, we got Cinematic Calamity, May 16th, Mainspace Comedy Bar, 9:30 p.m. And then in just under a week from today, May 3rd, the McNarly Comedy Show, again, Mainspace of Comedy Bar at 8 p.m. Great lineup, going to be a hilarious time. Let's get to the episode. As I said, Marlena's hilarious. I'm going to let her do the talking. I'm going to do my best to not be too loud as she's talking. I will say this about this episode. It's the first one that I recorded with somebody else. It was the first time I had somebody else in my apartment, the studio, if you will. I kind of did the quotations backwards there. It's the first time I had anybody in. It's the first time I really put this setup to use. And we had a few technical difficulties. I won't get into them. I've done my best to kind of gloss over them. I hope you guys don't notice, but this is going to be a great episode. I'm glad we're back. I promise you we're going to be much more consistent. My aim is to put one out on Wednesdays, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing every other Wednesday or every Wednesday. It's just kind of a matter of getting people in. That's the hardest part right now, is people are iffy about coming into your home, and I understand that. I literally just had COVID, so I totally get it. But we'll get into the show. Would you mind telling the folks what your job is and what department you're in, and maybe a little basis of what that department does on set?
Okay, so what my job is, there's probably 50 or even more different jobs you can have in the costume department. Some people go into the costume department and they only have one skill set, and they kind of stick with that skill set, but I float around every single job that you could possibly do in the costume department. So my job title, I'm just going to say various. I work in the costume department. What else did you ask?
Okay, so let's do it like this. Typical day, you're getting on set. What does your morning start like? What does your day start like?
Okay. Can I give you a breakdown of all of the things that I can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Because if you look at a call sheet, the costume department already is I would say it is the biggest on some sets.
Absolutely.
The biggest department out of all departments.
Absolutely.
And that's only what you're seeing on a call sheet. So let me just go through all the different things that you can do. So starting at the top, you've got the costume supervisor. That's who is yelling at everyone.
Yep.
Out of all the departments, you've got the costume designer, who's responsible for the job of designing. You've got the assistant costume designer, responsible for getting that shit on the racks,
yes,
so that it could get on the actor. So that's a lot of buying, a lot of overseeing, making sure that the sewing is going properly.
Gotcha.
So then you've got your set people. So your set people, you've got the person that's on the truck supervisor. That's the person that is the last person that sees that costume before it gets on the actor. Then you've got the set supervisor. The set supervisor is on set, supervising how that costume is laying on the actor while they're acting, doing adjustments in case they fall in a mud puddle or whatever. They are there. And that person may have their own specialty crew with them.
Yes.
Or they might be working on it alone. Then you've got your background costumes. This is where a lot of people are employed. It gives the most employment.
Absolutely.
So you're talking, some productions, they have a lot of background, and you're looking to sometimes upwards of 400 people that you are making sure all of the movie extras are looking okay. There's, if it's ancient Rome and somebody's wearing sunglasses and, that would be more so props, but it would fall on costumes. Or making sure that they're, if it's a specialty kind of look, that they're attending to that. So you've got your background costumes. Then you've got the office. You've got your sewing department.
Yes.
The head person in front, on top of all of the sewing department, is the cutter, the person responsible for designing the patterns. The designer will give them the drawings. Then you've got the cutter, which will physically sculpt that drawing into a costume.
That's a hardcore title, the cutter.
The cutter.
The cutter.
The cutter, yeah, exactly. And then you've got a crew of diligent sewers under the cutter. Then you've got, holy shit. Then you've just got, you've got your, who else? You've got your buyers.
I was going to say buyers. Buyers are an important
I just finished doing a job as a buyer.
Yes.
yeah, and that job can be fun. Honestly, going into it, you think it's going to be the funnest job in the world. Like, yay, I get to go shop and just buy things. It's like, no, you have to go shop for very, very specific things that are
Yes.
out of town, and it can be very, very, very stressful. Sometimes with instructions that are very vague, and then
Yes,
if you
of
get the
course.
wrong thing, then you've got your buyers, and they're also reporting to the assistant costume designer or the designer getting their...
I've got a quick story that I've heard about buyers that, you know, I as I know this industry, I just, when I got told this, I was like, oh yeah, that's something that could have been avoided. That totally wasn't. It was right as things were shutting down again, a show was going to be starting, and the whoever was in charge said, hey, can I get my buyers out like today to buy stuff, because as of Monday we are not going to be able to buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they got told no. And they're like, okay, you understand that this is a predicament and that we're not going to be able to get this readily, like, we can't go to stores again. And I mean, that's one thing I'd like to talk about on this production, or on this show, is about when productions say no to stuff that they need, and they think they're saving money, or they think that there's a cheaper way of doing things. And it costs them way more every time.
Way more money.
And there's so many things that we do, and we all look at it and go, okay, if you do it this way, and they go, no, we're doing it this way. And then when they're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, they go, oh yeah, we're going to go back to what you originally said we should do.
Yeah.
And I've seen it so many times. I've seen it with stuff, with the power on some sets. There's the big AR wall that just got built in this city, and the person I was working for told his bosses what we would need to be able to power that. And they said, can you cut that back? And he said, well, I can, but then this thing that you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on won't work properly. And they said, well, make it work properly. And so when they turned it on and only 3 of the panels out of like 50 panels turned on, they went, okay, yeah. Let's get the rest of that cable in and get those generators here.
I honestly think, like, before, I have a theory that before you are allowed to become a producer, you have to work at least a day in that department.
In order to, if there should be any level of thing, you should be a PA. You should start from the bottom,
Yeah.
and have at least a year as a PA before you can be a producer.
Oh, for sure.
Like, yeah, no, it's, but yeah, so that's that was my quick story about buyers and
Buyers.
But you're right. You know, I didn't think of that. I know I've seen you on set doing what we were talking about with the extras, where you're fitting the extras, and I know you sew, because I
sew a lot.
I think anyone that knows you knows about your mask making and your endeavors, as well as your beautiful dresses you make for yourself, such as the pickle dress.
Thank you.
Among others. And we've talked before about you making me wrestling gear, which I still would like to push forward with at some point in the new year.
We will do that.
As you can see, this is kind of an aesthetic of mine, the wrestling stuff. So
amazing.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so
so what is my typical day? It's gonna depend on what my job is. I think I became a member because and then you've got your sculpting department.
Yes, of course.
So each show is gonna have a vastly different costume department.
And especially with the superhero shows now, I know that super suits is such a big, that's what a lot of people hear when they hear those words.
Yeah, it's that is for sure a specialty. I have experience in that as well.
Did you like working super suits?
Okay. I'll just be completely frank and honest with
Absolutely,
you.
Yeah.
Just frank. I've had this year has been a very challenging year working in film. I've had some pretty traumatic experiences. So did I like working in super suits? I really loved I love thinking outside the box, and I love fixing things. So working in super suits, you have to fix things while you're thinking outside the box.
For sure.
So
Quickly, just to describe super, because I don't think I properly described it. So many shows currently are superhero shows, and your main characters are often in essentially armor, like modern day looking armor.
yeah,
And while a character in a suit and tie, it's pretty easy to put that together. These suits have complicated kind of connection points, is what I'd almost say, because they have to be fully covered, and it's masks and capes and shoulder pads and goggles and a million different pieces to put on these actors who, some of them I know, don't really realize what they're carrying around and I forgot the glove over there, or forgot stuff like that. And I think it's your guys' responsibility, one, to get them into it properly, and two, kind of relieve them of some of it.
yeah, that is a huge thing.
That's a big key of it, for sure.
And then a massive thing is some of these super suits, they're, worth so much money.
So much money. Very intricate.
So you can only have so many copies of those suits.
Of course, yes.
It's limited. And with that being said, like you have to clean them. You have to, there's a lot of repairs. You're talking about a suit that's going to be worn like so many times.
In fight scenes. And stunt rigs and
all of this stuff.
Yes.
And so basically there will be repairs after every single day of shooting. Yeah. And that is something that I had to do, is learn, and I loved that. I really did. Yeah. I love because I know that's kind of like, I know I've built a lot of very strange things, so I know all of my glues. I know what kinds of upholstery needles will work in them, and I really liked using that knowledge to, like,
absolutely,
and yeah. But with that being said, like with any job that you're gonna take in anywhere, if there are if there's conflict in within the personalities in that department, it can make that job exceptionally difficult to do. Yeah, so
for sure, absolutely. Okay, then let's go into a little lighter side of things. Was there things that you've worked on so far that you've, for the most part, enjoyed? Or was there something you've done that you're looking forward to seeing the final product on?
I absolutely loved, at the very beginning of my career, I worked on the first season of a show called American Gods.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, and I got to make hats for that show.
Wow.
And it was, and the designer really gave me a lot of creative freedom, and the hats were part of the storyline.
For sure.
Yeah, so.
And that was sorry to interrupt, that was a bigger show in our union that we had. It was very consistent work for a lot of people for quite a few years, but also a very demanding show in all of its seasons, but the first season in particular, I remember a lot of people saying that was a heavy show to take on.
It was my very first time on set as costumes, because I've been working in film and I've also been acting for many, many years.
Yes.
But my first time on set as a costume person was exterior in Pickering, in a cornfield, a night shoot with rain towers. And my job was adjusting cod pieces of stunt guys in their soldier outfits as they had this huge fight scene. That was the first time I was ever on set. It's like, holy shit.
The rain towers are one of the hardest things to deal with when you're on set. I've had to work a light as the rain towers are going. I'm the only lighting guy anywhere near the camera, near the actors, anything like that, and I'm just literally passing it by and getting drenched. And the one time in particular I was thinking of, I had all my rain stuff, but I just didn't have my boots. My boots were in my car rather than with all my gear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got one of our dailies to go. I gave him my keys. I go, can you get my boots? But like, I need them ASAP. And so he runs and gets them. In the first take, I don't have boots. And I'm like doing it, and I'm like trying to keep my feet like over top of each other so no water's getting into my boots.
Oh, no.
And then they cut. And as soon as I stood up, I could feel all that water. I just stopped from getting in my shoes, went right into those shoes. I put on my rain boots, and luckily I had a pair of socks stuffed in those boots. So I quickly threw those ones on, threw my dry socks, my new boots on, and then went back to it. But yeah, it can be pretty miserable. The nighttime, that's a big part of why I tried to avoid shooting all this year, was I just have no interest in being outside at 3 a.m. in November, December, January, February at all. But
that's the thing.
It's a big part of the gig for sure.
Yeah, huge part of the gig. You know what? There is a lot. Like, I'm very candid about my experiences at work, and because I'm a comedian also.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm open about my life, and yeah, unapologetically. But there's like so many things that the reason why I got into the union and I did costumes is I genuinely do love it. Like when I'm sewing, oh my God, that's the best day ever. I love sewing. I love making things. And when you even give me the tiniest bit of time to be creative,
yes,
that's like really, really when I shine, is when they do that. I can work 17 hours sewing, and barely take a break and just thrive and love it and have no complaints whatsoever. So as long as I'm working with like reasonable and nice people. And let me tell you, that time what we were in Pickering in the cornfield in rain towers, can I tell you, I had a great time.
Good. Yeah.
I had a great team. We had a lot of fun.
It's a big difference maker for sure.
Having a team
that works well.
It's like the best thing. People are like, I want to get into film. What what is the best piece of advice? Like, what do I need to know? And I always just tell them, all you need to know is you just need to not be annoying. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Literally, you need to be someone that you can hang around with for 17 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not want to tear your hair out. And that's literally all that you need.
Be good at your job, don't be a dick.
Yeah, be good at your... You know what? I don't even care if you're not good at your job. Like, we'll teach you.
That's it. Yeah, be attentive and don't be a dick.
Don't be an energy vampire, because we can't handle that for 17 hours.
No, for sure.
Don't be a jerk. Just like, be reasonable for that amount of time, and you'll do well.
Yeah, absolutely. If people like working with you, you will work.
Yeah.
That's it's been the one key to my whole career, is if you're easy to work with and teachable and have a work ethic at all, like even just the slightest one, you will continuously, or you should get continuous work as long as there is work to be had.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned being a comic. This is a big part of this show. I'm trying to get all my first guests to be at least a comic and somebody that works on set.
I don't know if I'm being funny enough because I'm talking about work.
I wasn't trying to make this the funniest podcast in the world, but it goes into it now. We'll talk a bit about it. You were on the show that is the namesake of this original podcast. We did Cinematic Calamity last year in September, and in a time where most people weren't really allowed in restaurants and bars, and we were still figuring that stuff out, and there was no vaccine or anything like that. I was happy with how the show went. I didn't get as big of a turnout as I want. It's the first time I've ever run a show on the main stage of Comedy Bar, so that was
a hard
cool
time.
It was a tough time to do it, for sure. But we had a lot of great comics on. We had you, we had Kareem Hasneen, we had Ali Banks, and we had Monty Gear, who's from the States, and everybody had good story. The original idea I had for that show was a storyteller show, and you'd be able to tell your, cinematic calamity. My hope was to imply the crazy, the most ridiculous stories from being on set. And I think you have a few. I don't remember the exact one you told that night.
Many.
You got so many. Everybody has. If you've worked in the industry for a couple minutes, you have quite a few stories. But do you remember the story you told on stage last year at the show?
I've got bits written out for this, but it's mostly just a list of complaints, like, why do I have to work? Do I have to go back to work? I really don't want to. Yeah, I was writing this set today and I was like, fuck, I do not want to go back to work. I love my job. It's so great. And I'm sourcing it being like, who do I know here? Do I work with anyone here? Oh my God.
Sure.
I was so young and innocent then.
A year ago. we all were.
Man, they were all, yeah. What story did I tell? I think I told, I did a weekly on Star Trek, and we had these, aliens called the Kelpians.
Yep.
And, it was hot. It was the hottest week in that summer.
And you were in the studio for that?
No, we were exterior at Scarborough Bluffs. Am I allowed to say these things? If I've the NDA and then it's already out though.
If it's out, it's out.
If it's out, it's out, right?
It's out. And also, there's a difference between saying the location this many months out, a year out, and saying we're going to Scarborough Bluffs tomorrow to shoot Star Trek.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, that is something I should remind people of. If you have an NDA, keep yourself in check until the thing comes out.
Right.
But there's not a planet called the Scarborough Bluffs in the Star Trek universe.
No.
I think if you said...
It would be...
If you said what happened at the end of the episode, yeah, I think you're in more trouble.
I don't even know, because I don't even watch the things that I'm a part of.
That's the thing. Some people ask me what's going on. I have no... Like, the last show I worked on, all I knew was they committed a crime, and this is the aftermath of said crime.
Right.
That's all I knew about the plot of the story. And they were sending me the scripts, too.
God, yeah.
Yeah, so... sorry, continue.
So we're in... it is hot.
Yes.
Tense. And these aliens, the costume is wrapping them with leather. Wrapping them from head to toe. Their hands are wrapped in leather. Oh wait, so you've got not the hands. The hands are prosthetic, but then it's wrapped in leather. The arms are wrapped in leather. The shoes are like platform. They are real tall. Like, from what I remember, like 4 inches tall, maybe 5.
Wow.
Maybe 6. And wrapping them in leather, literally wrapping them, taking pieces of leather and wrapping them, and then on top of that they've got some of them have contacts and prosthetic heads. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize, the responsibility that falls on the costuming department, is to make them comfortable when they're in their costumes.
For sure.
So how do you keep someone comfortable whose head is wrapped in leather and the rest, or head's wrapped in rubber? Hands, they can't walk. They can't, you can't.
Yeah, they can barely walk.
Barely walk. They have their hands. They can't use their hands.
And then the contacts, and I know on that show it's not just like, it's usually full eyeball contacts, like it takes up your whole eyes, and they often are getting like a safety pay for that. Like they get paid extra for doing
Yes,
something
but
like eye contacts.
I think everyone agreed that day that everyone was like, I don't even care.
No, for sure.
This
Absolutely.
isn't worth it. So it's like, it's like,
tough, yeah.
it's already, I was already having a tough time. It was like 42 degrees with the Humidex, maybe 45.
Ugh.
And then you've got your head in rubber. So my job was feeding aliens that day. Feeding and giving water to aliens, and that was my job that day, and walking the aliens to set, and that was my job. I was like the babysitter of the personal care worker of the aliens.
There you go.
It was not an easy job. There were a lot of them. I had to feed all of them. And that was a memorable day. I went home, I was tired, and I just like, but like, man, I went home and I felt worthwhile, because I was like, you know, if you had somebody, and I've seen this happen where someone is not really a people person, and they take a call and they're in that position, and they're not maybe giving people extra special attention, and they're not really being empathetic, then that's the point where people do get hurt.
For sure.
But I myself, I'm a comedian, also an actor. I've been in these weird things. I've had to wear them. So like that gave me like actually a leg up on a lot of people, like to actually really, really have empathy for people wearing weird things in bad weather, and all of these like terrible expectations people have of you. I just make sure, I actually love working background, and some people think it's like beneath them, but I actually love that job, because it's like, I actually am making a difference in the world. Like,
for sure.
Yeah.
And there's so much more scrutiny on the continuity of shows these days.
Yeah.
And I think those are two key points of your job that we should bring out. One, the human aspect of it. You are the closest person, other than makeup, usually makeup and hair, and you guys are usually the ones that are putting your hands directly on actors all day, every day. And there has to obviously be a level of trust there.
Yeah.
A level of respect and understanding, and on top of that, like we said, the craziness of some of these costumes and everything like that, and the patience it takes to be, and it's funny because there are things that people are like, oh, I don't do that, or I know the beneath me kind of attitude that some people have, and it's so funny when that's like I don't love what we call slinging 4/0, which is our really heavy cables that come directly from the generator. And when you have a big open field like the cornfield you're talking about, there's probably like 1,000 feet of 4/0 before it even gets to the smaller cables. But in the morning, when you guys are all done and the cameras are gone and it's just wrapping that kind of stuff, there's a real, I don't know, it's one of the few jobs where I can have like a zen focus, and I'm just trying to wrap the cables, and the way I wrap them is like make them like a tire almost, like I try and stack them all the way up. And it's nice because I can throw like an earphone in and be playing music and just wrapping cables really quickly, or breaking the cams and getting being ahead so the other guys can start cleaning them up behind me. And it's funny when people are like, I don't do 4/0, or I don't wrap 4/0, or I don't do this, and it's like, that can be the most fun job. There's guys that like race. They'll go, ready, 1, 2, 3, go, and they see who can rap faster.
Nice.
And Nikki Holmes is the fastest 4/0 rapper in our union.
Nice.
So I challenge anyone to take him on. But no, I learned the art of, like you said, sewing. I gotta assume that's a big, like, almost like Zen kind of pushing. I mean, I know there's focus to it and there's like you could screw things up.
I find that honestly sewing is a form of, I don't know if this is actually a word or if this is something that I'm making up, but I'm going to call it active meditation.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, you have to be mindful, because if you don't, you'll sew off your finger.
Yeah, and where I learned about that was I worked in a sports store sharpening hockey skates, and especially around the holidays, if you're one of the guys on the wheels, like doing the sharpening, that's all you're doing. And if you get in a zone and you're just doing it and doing it and doing, I remember walking away and like writing down a million things because I came up with so many. I wasn't even a comic then. I was just kind of like writing scripts and whatever. I remember like writing out pages and pages and pages afterwards of stuff that I had thought up just while focusing.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's an active meditation, and you know the forot can feel like that, and it's so interesting when people are like, I don't want to do that job, and I gotta wonder if it's they just haven't taught themselves to like focus on it. I don't know. It's so strange that like some people like
I
love text like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make it work for me. I will.
Of course, yeah.
I'll make it work for me. Like if I'm just like labeling shoe boxes, I'll have. Actually, that's how I really. That is the beginning of my comedy career. I was being a costume assistant. Basically, that's the lowest position, but I love those jobs because you just you're doing things like, but like that job is important. If you're labeling a bin of number of size seven shoes but they're size 9, that's the that you might not get to camera because you can't find the shoes, you know. So, but while I'm on that, doing that job, I'll always have podcast, actually audiobooks. That was the first audiobook that I read on comedy, who I actually ended up getting private lessons from, was Mastering Stand-Up by Stephen Rosenfield, and he that was the first anything I read on comedy, and I just and then I signed up for classes at Second City, and all I did this was for this show called Mrs. America, which was actually one of my favorite shows to work on. I was just a costume assistant for that show, but
I think that's when we met.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that probably would have, that checks out, because then then that's when I started doing comedy.
Yeah.
I made it work for me. I listened to that audiobook several times over and over again while I was cleaning. Here's an unglamorous job. All of these costumes are vintage, and it's my job to see what I need to clean the costume with.
Oh, wow.
So I had to smell the armpits of the costume and go, does this need dry cleaning or okay, can I douse this with alcohol? Or if it's really, really stinky, then you use something called extinguisher, which is a spray that firefighters use to get the smoke out of their firefighter uniforms.
Wow.
So that's for like it'll get real bad smells out. So that was those were my choices. I would go through literally a warehouse full of costumes because it was all protest scenes. In the middle of August, protest scenes, polyester, hundreds of people. They would wheel in these costumes into the warehouse, and I'd have to smell all of them, and I did not turn my nose up at it.
Hey-oh.
Oh.
Now we're being funny.
Oh boy. And I listened to comedy podcast or audiobooks, and just really got a lot of knowledge before I started really writing.
There you go. I think, so the first show I remember us talking to one another would have been at Hawaii Bar, Laughter Luau.
Do you remember that night?
That was, that was
an epic night.
I remember you telling that story again too, but yeah, it was an epic night. There was an
epic night.
Yeah. I don't remember all the
details. Okay, so but I'm famous for a couple of things.
The Parrot, yes, that's right.
Yes, and prior to Mrs. America, one of the reasons why I really enjoyed Mrs. America was because I had a couple of things. I lost my this pet parrot that I had. I loved this pet parrot. And it got spooked one day, and it flew away, and I lost it, and I tried everything to get it back. I posted the neighborhood, I posted on the internet, and I became famous for it. So much so that quite recently, a couple months ago, the Toronto Star did a follow-up story on my Parrot losing story. So I go, and this is one of my first open mic sets. I do this, I'm going to spoil my comedy. I do a set. So the other day I was wearing a name tag, and I looked in a mirror, and that is when I found out that my name, Marlena, spelled backwards, is anal ram. It is anal ram. You know, I'm not even into anal ram. Like, why can't my name spelled backwards be something that I want? Drawer full of coupons. Or like, even dude who calls me back, you know? My name, Marlena, spelled backwards, is anal ram. You've heard that joke before, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone has, and I do it, and it does really, really well. And I'm there with one of my friends from Mrs. America.
That's right, yep.
And this guy goes, and we're about to leave to go to another comedy
That's
show.
right.
So
yes.
I'm like settling up. And this guy goes up after me, and he goes, "What's the fucking deal with all of these lost Parrot posters?"
That's right.
Now my friend is like chatting up some guy, and I tap her on the shoulder, and I go, "Oh my God, he's talking about me." And she pays no mind. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "He's talking about me." And he's just insulting, like, "What the hell? Why are these posters in black and white?" And I didn't even think or hesitate. I just literally ran up to the stage. Now, I'm a very new comedian. I ran up to the stage. I couldn't help myself, Mark. This was a traumatic experience for me, and this guy is cutting me up in front of my face. What are the chances, though?
I know, that's so crazy.
So he's like talking, and I walked up to the stage, and I'm like, "You're talking about me." And he's like, You're hijacking my bit. You're hijacking my bit. And I was like, "The posters were in black and white because I'm an artist. I'm a comedian." I'm like, can you afford color posters? And he's like, "You're hijacking my bit." And I was like, "Hijacking your bit? I am your bit."
It's about me, yeah.
And then everyone in the room starts screaming, "Anal ram! Anal ram!" Literally the whole bar. And so we left as the whole bar is cheering, "Anal ram!" And that was one of my first open mic experiences ever, and you were there.
I missed that.
You missed that?
I missed that, though.
Oh my God.
I had just left. We had just talked, and you guys were going to settle up. And I had just left as well.
Oh my God. That was, I can't believe you missed that.
Yeah.
That
Because I definitely, a story like that I would remember, but I know that the night that we're talking about was when we first talked. Because I had done my whole set was talking about guys that I work with, the nicknames, and that's mostly what I did on the Cinematic Calamity show, was just all the stuff that I had about film. And as I was talking about that, I remember you kind of like turning and like focusing on what I was saying. And then afterwards you came up and you said, I work on Miss America at the time.
Yeah.
And you said that. And my buddies were the lighting team on that show. So we were talking about different people that we might know on the show and whatever. And yeah, I think it would be a Friday, so maybe I was going to another show. Maybe I just, normally when it's an open mic, once my spot's done, I try and get the hell out of there. But I do remember, like, we talked and you were just about to settle up, and yes. So I literally just missed that whole chaos.
Scene. That was my introduction into the comedy world.
That really was. That was super early. And, yeah, so the Parrot thing, they've done the follow-up. Obviously, you never found your
I
parrot.
did not find my parrot.
I'm very sorry to hear that. But you have continued to grow your farm, if you will, your petting zoo. Pip is...
Pip is a little sassy, a spicy little lovebird. It's
That's
a form of a parrot. It's a tiny form of parrots. So I have Pip. She looks like a little mango.
She's very sweet.
She's actually a huge asshole, but
that's true. And I have not met the now famous Morty.
Morty is a golden retriever puppy. And I actually got Morty so that I possibly am going to exit the film world completely forever. And Morty I got kind of as okay, you know what? If you've got a dog now, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to do it. Yeah. And so you're going to have to make some changes. And Morty, I was supposed to be a boy. And I never, because I was like, I always wanted to have a dog named Mortimer. So, and then Morty for short. And then I went and I picked her up.
This is a hilarious story, and this is something that my family would do as well. So, sorry, continue.
I mean, okay.
You didn't do anything. Sorry, I shouldn't say you did something.
I went and I don't know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go in and be like, what is it, like a police officer, and be like, let me see your papers, let me see your blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the right way to do. So, like, I went in and they had the puppy in a pen in their garage, and it was waiting for me, and so I assumed it was, because they said it was only one boy left, so I was like, okay, and I pay them, and I leave, and the puppy had an eye infection, so a day later, I was like, I've already got to go to the vet. So I go to the vet, and I fill out all the forms and everything, Mortimer, blah, blah, blah. And the vet, because we're not doing in-person visits, the vet calls me as I'm waiting in my car. It's like, okay, so your dog is a she.
Wow.
He's like, you click this, you take this off as a he. Like, your dog is definitely a she. And I'm like, okay. Like, do I rename it now? I'm like, no, I've already settled on the name. Like, people are like, you call it I'm like, no, Morticia's not a dog's name. It's not. That's a cat's name. It's not really a golden retriever's name. So I'm just calling her Morty.
To be fair, as I said, it's something my family would do. My first dog was also a golden retriever. My family was obsessed with golden retrievers. So As soon as I saw Morty, I was ecstatic for you. Our first dog was a female dog named Kramer. The reason we named it Kramer is because Seinfeld was the biggest show in the world. It was my dad's favorite show. And before Michael Richards had done all the stuff that kind of got him extradited from Hollywood, he was my dad's favorite character. And the logic behind it was, if we're getting a dog, I get to name it, was my dad's whole thing.
Okay.
But my parents were insistent that we were getting a female dog. And I don't know what the reason is for that. Like, they were doing a lot of research, and they were asking, they were trying to find out how to determine a breeder, how to, just all the things you should be looking for.
Yeah,
and I guess
I didn't do.
somebody just said to them, it's better to have female puppies. Or female, maybe it was golden retriever specifically. I've asked them about it. Neither of them remember that conversation. They were told that it's better to have a female puppy.
Okay.
And it never got explained, and so because somebody gave them that information, they were going to go with a female dog. And because my dad was like, it's my house, my rules, I'm naming it, he just went with Kramer, even though Kramer's not even a first name. No. Let alone does it have a recognized gender behind it.
Right.
Really. Yeah. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Kramer she was the runt, and also I think, like, a little on the slow side for a dog. And I know that's saying something for a dog, but like just couldn't accept that like anything wasn't her food. Like chewed shoes, chewed through everything. She
Oh,
ate a
yeah.
half a picnic table.
Yeah, mine's doing that.
Yeah, I think they all kind of do that, but I don't know. I love golden retrievers.
They're the best.
I think you've seen photos of my sister's golden Dolly, who's just the sweetest in the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm happy you have a dog. As I said, happy you have a golden retriever. I totally get where you're coming from. I made a bunch of career changes this year because I didn't want to have like I'm dreading that I might have to do shooting calls in the next few weeks as we get to the end of the year and things are slowing down. We'll touch on this just because you and I have talked a bit about it personally. The strike and everything that went on in LA and I think, I mean, you either want everything to change in the industry or you're doing what you're doing and just going, let's change it up. Let's do something different. They've ratified the deal that they got, and I don't think they got anywhere near what everyone hoped they would be getting. Do you have any?
Oh man. um, there's a few things that I think should just be completely and utterly illegal. Like for instance, getting anything under 6 hours of sleep. Like I'm hoping that like I think one day technology will like pick up, and I think that maybe we will have some kind of way to test people about how much sleep they've had. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe
no,
it could happen. But I think like straight up that should be illegal, and not just for our well-being, but for every single person that is driving on that highway,
on the road or wherever.
it's it's just completely unsafe. I really I'm against it. So 10 hours of turnaround, to be honest.
12 should be 12 and 12.
And after a certain point, it should be just illegal. Like
for us to still be working. I totally agree.
Like that's the government. Unfortunately, like we can talk till we're blue in the face, but it's gonna take a tragedy to happen. I hate it. I don't want it to happen, but it will happen.
A tragedy, or for me, a strike. I thought if they did go to a strike, a lot of these things would have to be more attended to and whatnot. And I have my own feelings about our local, and you get all these guys that go off. We don't have seniority anymore. We don't have this. I was like, well, I only got sworn in 3 years ago. You guys got rid of seniority 20 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was hoping that things would go differently for them.
Yeah.
Because it would set a precedent for us. But
I was really paying attention to it very, very closely because I knew that the outcome would affect us. And also just film was like I was okay. Like, was I completely elated with my career? Like, I wouldn't say that. There were times where I felt elated about my career.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it was, I was in the lower end of the union and getting a lot of the jobs that nobody else wanted to do. But I had just become a member, and so I was actually really hopeful for the future. It was when I came back. It was after COVID. I would say I saw a huge change. I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but I saw an enormous change in the industry. April 2021. I saw an enormous change in the industry after COVID, and I'm gonna, there's a lot of guesses that I can make. Maybe it's that all of the extra costs of COVID testing and the COVID department were forcing producers to cut money in other places. I can just tell you that the workplaces were extremely tense. We're under,
Sure.
I would say, if I were to guess, 38% more stress than normal. That's my exact statistic.
I don't know how we'd measure that ultimately, but it sounds a fair
You'd say a
statistic.
good, I would say.
I think a big part of it was there was a shortage. There was so many shows coming up,
Yeah.
and we were behind 5 months technically.
Yeah.
So there's so many shows coming up. A lot of people moving up into heads of departments that they had never been head of departments, had no experience for it, and there was just a shortage of people, and a lot of people
Shortage of supplies.
Shortage of supplies, and on top of everything, you got people having to wear masks on top of masks and
Sometimes
constantly
for 17 hours.
For 17 hours, it's affecting how you see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that pissed me off during a lot of that was the people on the top or the higher end of things didn't have to follow those rules.
Right.
And I know that that's the way things go, and I know that whoever the number one on the call sheet is going to have different rules than what I have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to something like, say, that person's not going to go, no, I'm not going to wear a harness while we do this stunt. And so it was frustrating to see other people get different treatment in that context, in the context of, oh, I'm a different person than you. I'm somehow not going to get anyone sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, in general, just working those hours under all those conditions made it so much more challenging, I think, for a lot of people. And I think the possibility of that strike happening made people think, all right, we could make these demands and make things change, and it's just hard to see that now. But
I kind of just sensed that it was going that way, and I had to, there was a certain point where I had to stop paying attention, and I was really, really invested.
You were. I think we both were, for sure.
Yeah, but there came a time, every single show call that I did within the last, since February of 2021.
Yeah.
Every single place that I was employed in at was significantly challenging, and I kind of just sat back, a couple weeks ago, and I'm just right now I am deciding to just choose to be happy. I
great.
just want to be happy.
That's great.
And that's what I'm doing, and I don't know if I'm going back to film. I don't know if the problems that I have faced during my career, which it's so sad because I just got full membership.
Yep, absolutely.
But I don't know. I'm also looking at the lives of people, and like there was someone that was keeping track of like mortality rates in the union, and it's looking like the average age of someone working in the union is 65.
For electrics and grips, electrics were 63%, which was 2% lower, like what you said.
Yeah.
For grips, it was like 61, and no, grips were like even they were like 4, like just the numbers were insane, and it's not just possible injury or whatever on set. It's straight up mortality through alcoholism, the driving while tired, as you spoke about earlier, and all these things. So
fun fact, all of the significant problems I have in my life are since I started working in film. No joking. No joke. I actually, and I'm serious, and I think it's the lack of sleep that is a huge thing. I had like a pretty good steady relationship that I had for 7 years, and film is what took it under. I had no history of mental illness. Believe it or not, I'm bipolar. my symptoms of bipolar only showed 6 months after working in film. 6 months after working in film, all of a sudden, I start showing... I don't know if it could be coincidence, but I honestly, stress and lack of sleep are triggers of, like, you can have the genes to possibly have mental illness, but never ever have that mental illness if you don't have the conditions that, like...
For sure.
Yeah.
The 100% the sleep, like that was a big one for me during the time off during the first original lockdown. Getting to sleep at a decent time and waking up at a relatively normal time, that, like, I went, oh wow, I feel completely different.
Yeah.
And then I learned a bit more about circadian rhythm and how important it is to every function in your body. And I made that choice this year to try and only do rigging and avoid, I go to bed, if I go to bed at like 11 now, the next day I'm just completely a different person, it feels like.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big problems with this business not being conducive to that. But since we're kind of in the wrap up mode, I'm gonna ask you. We talked about your comedy. Is there anything you have coming up that you're excited for? Is there any projects you are working on, film or otherwise? And then, of course, you also have your shows that you're running, and I'd love for you to plug those. So, floor is yours.
Right now, it's just comedy. I have a show every Monday at the Comedy Bar.
Yes, in the cabaret room.
In the cabaret room at 9:30 p.m. We actually have I have a show sometimes that I run called Quit Your Day Job. Where we bitch about our jobs.
Great one.
Clearly, I'm great about that.
You have a knack for it, that's for sure, lady. I did one of the shows. You've been good about mixing up. It's not one consistent theme every single show. We did Deo de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, on November 1st.
Yes.
Where we were roasting our deceased loved ones.
That was fun.
That was a great show. I'd like to give Kelly Zemnekis a big shout out because I think her story was amazing.
It really was.
Your story about your uncle was really good. I like that. And then, of course, Andrea Hull's story about her crazy grandfather, who she had told me like 90% of what she told me just through text one day.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, you're telling me a movie right now, like you should really save this. And then I told her about the roasting show and she's like, can I get on it? I was like, you can message Marlena, I'm sure she'll be interested, she knows you. So, and yeah, I think those two, I think Kelly had such a great, beautifully touching story about her first love and the craziness behind their relationship but I think Andrea's was just like literally, like I said, she had like movie storytelling about this character that was her grandfather and he was essentially a local legend in the Junction, the way she described him. So that was a very fun one. And I did one other one of yours, which I'm blanking on.
I believe it was the Rejection.
Rejection, yes, that's right. I told the story of. I actually mixed up a couple stories for that one. I kind of encompassed a few things into one and changed things up a bit. But I told the story of getting rejected in like grade 5 or 6, and my buddy Dan, who was the one that kept me kind of up throughout that whole thing and kept me not feeling too rejected, even though it was the first rejection of my life. Which,
amazing.
How goofy is it that one of my most painful rejections was from like grade 6.
Hey man, rejection.
The trauma just stays. It just holds around. Yeah,
your first
for sure.
Rejection is
it's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
For sure.
I love. Yeah, we do it. So like, sometimes the sets are pretty polished, but like basically I love them because it's like Alex Squire, the sound technician, he loves the show. He looks forward to every Monday because he hears the same sets and out of the same
jokes
people
all the time.
all the time. You're not getting you're not getting that. You're getting it may be slightly less polished because this is like a one-time kind of.
Oh, the story I told, the story about my buddy Danny G, was like one of my choppiest stories. I think I wrote it on, you do it the Monday, so I wrote it like Thursday or Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I tried elements of it at an open mic on like the Friday or Saturday, and then we did whatever show we did in your back. I think I did it one more time like the day of in your backyard.
Right, because I did.
We should explain that as well.
Oh boy, you're like, we're wrapping up here, and I'm like, and another thing.
No, we'll talk about this because this is super important to the Toronto stand-up community. I'll just quickly introduce it. Marlena ran a comedy club out of her backyard of a place that she's renting. Like, to me, that's always the like cherry on top. Is it's not a backyard that you officially own in any sort.
No.
But you took it over and built a amazing facility for people to really workshop stuff more than anything else. It was a club in the sense that people could come and sit down and hang out, but you weren't charging for tickets. You were just bringing people through for anything. And I'll let you kind of take it from here on.
Year one of the pandemic, it was actually like people were donation bin, and we were actually having Just for Laughs comedians come in. Yeah, Just for Laughs comedians were coming in and testing out their material because that was like, Just for Laughs was being filmed, and there was no place to practice.
There was no rooms open. Yeah,
there's no rooms open. They were all indoor rooms, and those places were not allowed to operate.
Of course.
And so my place was actually a garbage dump. No joke. It was a garbage dump from my landlords. I got a bunch of comedians who graciously helped me turn that space from garbage into like a full tented, with seats, lighting. At one point we did have a microphone, and so it was really like an outdoor, fully operational comedy club with like lights, and it was crazy looking, and it was Instagram worthy. There was
for sure
tons of twinkle lights and whatnot.
The Love Shack.
I called it the Love Shack, and because I wasn't working in film. These are the things that I do with my time when I'm not working in film.
We have those same things. We when we have time off, like clearly I finally made days where I'm like, all right, I've been talking about this podcast forever. Marlena is the first person I'm recording.
What?
I've recorded myself doing this podcast. Marlena is the first one we're recording. You're probably seeing this episode 3 or 4, so we'll see what happens. Though I might change up where we're putting things.
Okay.
But you're the first person that I've recorded here. But same as you. I've dove into things that I haven't either touched for a while or haven't worked on, and the editing stuff was a big thing that I jumped in on during the time.
Things that you're capable of when you have any free time. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. And the mental capacity to deal with those.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for checking out the episodes, guys. My name is Mark McNarly. This has been Cinematic Calamity. How great was Marlena? She was so interesting. Her stories were great. I'm sorry, as I said, there was a bit of technical difficulties right at the end of what we were shooting. My camera died out. It's the first time I've ever recorded one of these, so I just didn't know everything I needed to do, and so I cut off kind of choppy at the end there. I maybe I did it all right. I don't know. I'm always judgy of my own edits. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. One more time, I'm going to remind you guys, May 3rd, Mainspace of Comedy Bar, 8 p.m., the McNarly Comedy Show. May 16th, The Return, Cinematic Calamity 3D, Mainspace of Comedy Bar, 9:30 p.m. That's a Tuesday. It's going to be a good time. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming out. More episodes coming. Like I said, I don't know exactly when they're going to be coming out, but I'm aiming for every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. Check me out on all the socials. At Instagram, you can find me at both Duder McNarly and McNarly Media. TikTok and Twitter is Duder McNarly. And, of course, you're already on the YouTube page, McNarly Media on YouTube. Like, subscribe, throw a comment down there. Tell me if we're being funny enough. Tell me if we're telling good enough stories. Tell me the best costume, your favorite costume from a film of all time. And yeah, tell me you like this. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Take care, you fucking rockets.